Hello, Star Trek fans, and welcome to the Rebinge Deep Space Nine podcast. My name is Kim.
And my name is James.
And we're watching Star Trek Deep Space Nine from the beginning, one episode at a time. Welcome back to the podcast. Today we are on Season 7, Episode 20, The Changing Face of Evil. This episode aired April 28th, 1999. Before we talk about this one, anything to say about last week's episode?
No, it was perfect.
Yeah, it was a good one, I think. Didn't we give it thumbs up? There's a lot of Kai Winn. That's what I remember.
There was a sufficient amount of Kai Winn in it.
A lot of evil. Well, there's a sufficient amount in this episode as well.
Oh, yeah. It's also got a great title. The Changing Face of Evil. That's a great Star Trek title right there.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Better than the stupid Latin one that we just released today that I can't ever remember the name of. Well, you have the notes, so off you go.
Okay. In the opening, Ezri and Worf have returned. Mars and Julian are happy to greet them.
Hooray.
And we learn that Morn won the betting pool for which day they would be back. Maybe somebody should investigate Morn. Maybe he has the ability to see the future.
Or he's just good at betting. He probably makes so many bets that he's wrong so many times.
Yeah.
But he just happens to be right a few times, so it seems like he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, every now and then he wins one.
Yeah.
I did like how upbeat Mars was. And I also liked him picking on Julian, saying he was doom and gloom all the time.
Yeah.
Also, the way Ezri turns to Worf and says, "See, I told you they'd miss us." Sisko joins this little impromptu welcoming committee and wants to know more about the Breen Dominion alliance. Ezri tells him they didn't learn much about it. Sisko then asks, why did Damar help them? Worf explains how Damar hates Weyoun and the Cardassians are treated like second-class citizens in the Dominion. Kira then calls Sisko to inform him, the Breen have attacked Earth.
Uh-oh.
And into the opening titles.
Sometimes when I'm watching this show and I learn about these crazy things that happen, like the Breen attacking Earth, for example, and I just think, how did I miss all this important stuff in the Star Trek world? I mean, are my Star Trek credentials still valid?
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. Will your membership in the Star Trek world be downgraded to Ensign Second Class?
Oh.
Back from the titles, and we see a heavily damaged San Francisco. Starfleet HQ is on fire and their buildings burning, and even the Golden Gate Bridge has been hit. One of the towers is buckled and the center is missing. I think that's the most iconic part of this scene. It's a really good, matte painting.
Yeah.
Sisko and Martog are reviewing the attack, and Martog comments that even his people never attempted that, and describes the Breen as a race of warriors. He does seem very impressed with this.
He does.
Although, in Discovery, the Klingons actually made it to the Earth's solar system and were preparing an attack right before they called a truce.
I don't remember that, but yeah, I think you're right. But it didn't happen, so...
That's true, they never actually pulled it off.
Yeah. Martog is awesome in this scene.
Oh, he definitely is. Martog tells Sisko that every species has its weakness, and the Breen are no exception. Sisko replies, we'd better find it soon.
But they did destroy most of the attacking ships, so
yes,
they're at least vulnerable.
Yeah, right. I mean, Sisko does bring that up. Okay, I'm going to jump into overanalysis.
All right.
I feel if you launch a raid and it results in the loss of most of your ships, and obviously well-trained and skilled crew, because they managed to pull this off, that conducting symbolic suicide attacks, your overall strategy is probably not very good.
Yeah, I have a question about that in my overanalysis, actually, about some of the things that are going on the founder side of the war.
Let's talk about it there. Off to Cardassia, and a gloating Weyoun is in ultra-smug mode. He's very impressed with the Breen attacks and all the casualties it's caused, describing it as striking fear into the enemies and making them feel weak. And I feel this is a reference to Imperial Japan's thinking and Pearl Harbor. Your enemy will be so frightened by what you do that they won't fight.
Yeah.
And it's like they don't pay attention to history, of any history. Did they think that maybe the alternative might happen and it will really annoy the other side so that they really want revenge? And for the homework assignment for this episode, people should also look up the Taranto raid by the Royal Navy on the Italian fleet in port. Afterwards, the Italians didn't just go, okay, we're good, we're done, time to give up. I feel it speaks to maybe this is what the Dominion have faced in the past, that they've been able to carry out big raids, these sort of showpieces, and have cowed the other side into surrender or accepting terms or whatever they wanted. So they think, oh, we just need to do this. They'll be all frightened. We can't possibly lose.
Well, I bet it works on smaller scales in the other quadrant. Whereas here, maybe the difference is all the alliances and the species that are all working together. The fear's not as quick.
So it's really their lack of experience.
That's my guess. Maybe that's part of the problem here. But why would the Dominion pay any attention to Earth history? It thinks everything having to do with the solids is irrelevant.
That's true.
So they're only going to pay attention to their own experiences. And that's what I'm saying. Maybe it was different in the other quadrant.
Yeah. Imagine if you attacked the Klingons.
Yeah.
The Klingons would be like screaming for blood.
Yeah, well, they haven't had the scale, is what I'm thinking.
Right. Back to the scene, and Damar congratulates Thok-Gor, but he does get a dig in saying, it's a shame so few of your ships survived the assault. And if you notice, he also doesn't have a drink in his hand for a change.
He doesn't. I love Weyoun in this scene, too. He says, leave it to you, Damar, to point out the one cloud in the silver lining.
Well, that super gloating smug mode that Weyoun has, it's absolutely on the surface here.
Yeah, was it in the last episode when Worf killed the previous Weyoun and Damar pointed out that the flaw with Weyoun is the arrogance?
Oh, yes, yeah.
And I feel like we see it again here, and not just in what he's saying, but in also the way he's just dismissing Damar.
Yeah.
Even when he sees there's something different about him, he still just dismisses it as not a serious threat.
Oh, yeah. After Weyoun leaves to inform the founder of the good news, Damar tells Gor the Cardassians were once favored by the Dominion, and if the war doesn't go well, they'll shift the blame to the Breen, giving him the advice, win or lose, I wouldn't turn my back on Weyoun.
I was really impressed with Casey Biggs in this scene. Now that he has something to work with, I think he's really showing up.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. He's
done like this 180 with this character.
Yeah.
This character's gone from a doormat to actually trying to embrace his destiny.
I was also wondering in this scene here, why do we not understand the Breen? The translator translates for everybody else. Why not the Breen? Were they trying to make the Breen a scarier villain?
I assume so. Make them more of an unknown, what exactly are they?
Yeah.
I will also point out, I assume Weyoun 8 survived telling the founder about Ezri and Worf escaping, because we don't get any reference to being Weyoun 9, so...
I mean, it was just two people, I guess. They didn't really care.
Wasn't worth decanting a new Weyoun just for that.
Right.
Back to Deep Space Nine, and Cassidy is trying to cook like Sisko, and it is not succeeding. Sisko's prized peppers do not make it through the episode.
The scene was kind of silly.
Well, Cassidy tells Ben she's heading out on a cargo run. Sisko objects, saying, I can't talk you out of it. And Cassidy replies, not a chance. While I can totally understand Sisko's concern here, having already lost a partner, surely he must understand something of Cassidy's personality and understand that she has a job that still has the potential of danger, even if there isn't a war going on.
Yeah.
And in the inverse, we've not seen this from Cassidy trying to stop Sisko from his Starfleet duties. In this situation, I'd honestly expect both parties to really understand the other's position, their sense of their duty, their responsibilities. So I guess maybe you would try and talk the other person out of it.
Well, it might not be that interesting to show that kind of a conversation. Instead, they do it this sort of clunky way.
Yeah.
Where Sisko is just like, oh, no, you're not doing that. Instead of, he could have said something like, the war is really ramping up. It seems so much more dangerous now. I don't feel comfortable with you going out on your normal mission runs.
Yeah.
If he had just instead expressed his concern rather than, oh, you can't do that,
right,
it would have been a completely different conversation.
Well, and I could see Cassidy's response to that being, well, this makes my job even more important. It's even more critical that I do these things.
Yeah, and just have a conversation rather than this sort of silly thing that they like to do.
Right. Off again to Cardassia. And a Cardassian officer is giving Damar the data he asked for. We get a hint that it's nefarious because he seems nervous at the possibility of being disturbed by the Vorta. He tells Damar he doesn't like all this plotting and secrecy, describing it as, what are we, Romulans?
That was good.
Romulans have such a bad rep for being sneaky and secretive. I feel this is a negative cultural stereotype.
I think it's pretty accurate. Yeah, I like the way he delivered it. I don't think we've seen this guy before, but I liked him.
Well, Damar tells this officer Cardassia is now occupied territory, and to defeat an occupying army takes planning and secrecy. Well, this guy isn't really convinced and questions if they can really defeat the Dominion. Damar is surprisingly inspirational here. And Damar goes on to say they are fighting to win back their homes and their freedom. This is your point of it's like Casey Biggs 180. He's really sort of changed the Damar character. And we get a little bit of exposition as the officer talks about how this is quite a reversal of fortune. The occupier becomes the occupied.
Becomes the conquered. Yeah.
A little bit of overanalysis here. Do you think the Cardassians understand how the Bajorans felt now?
No.
Do you think they have any kind of understanding of...
No. You have to respect someone to have any sort of care about their feelings. So no, I don't think so. But it's very similar.
Yes.
Except you could argue that the Cardassians are dumber because they let the occupiers into their world.
Right.
Whereas the Bajorans did not.
I think the Cardassians would tell themselves, like the Regent from the Mirror Universe, they weren't defeated. They were betrayed.
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, it's kind of true, but they were sort of betrayed by their own person in Dukat.
Yeah, it's true. He's the one who put everything in motion.
Yeah, but I think at the time, Dukat's plan was, well, one of two things. Either we'll finish this war and then the Dominion will leave because they don't really care.
Yeah.
Or he was thinking, we are so great, we're going to conquer everybody. In the end, we'll be in charge.
Oh, that's your second option there. That's exactly what Dukat was thinking.
The second delusion. Yeah, okay.
Dukat is so delusional.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even worse now than he was then.
Well, this guy tells Damar the list of officers who are loyal to Cardassia is pretty short, but Damar reassures him that after a victory or two, this list will get longer. He seems very positive about this whole thing.
Yeah, you hope so.
Off to Bajor, as we're traveling around every planet in the quadrant.
Only the important ones.
And Solbor is reading Kai Winn her schedule, and she's cancelling pretty much everything to his dismay. Dukat arrives and immediately starts pushing Solbor around.
Poor Solbor.
Yeah.
I mean, he is getting a little mouthy in this scene, though.
Yes. Dukat starts trying to charm Winn, but it's not working on her today, and he asks what's bothering her. She tells him she can't keep pretending to follow the path of the prophets, and he reassures her that the Par-Wraiths are waiting to embrace her. She asks when is that going to happen, and Dukat quite nonchalantly says, as soon as we release the Par-Wraiths from the fire caves.
No big deal.
Yeah, I like that. There's some great exposition here where Winn brings up that the prophecies tell Bajor will be destroyed if the Par-Wraiths are released.
Right.
And Dukat tells her that from the ashes a new Bajor will arise and the restoration will begin. And I love this, where he says, those that the gods find worthy will survive. And in this dawn of a new paradise, Winn is destined to rule it.
And she wasn't super interested in the whole thing until he said that. Then she was like, oh, do you think so?
Yes. This is so great because he, or the Par-Wraiths, whichever one it is, just knows exactly how to control her. All the words that will make her completely jump on board 100%. I get to run everything? Yeah, cool, we're good.
It's really interesting, though, that she's still struggling to give up on the prophecies that she's used to, right? The things that she used to preach, she'll still sort of repeat them. Like, wait a minute, that will release a great evil. And he's like, no, and has to sort of remind her, you switch sides, remember?
Right.
It's like she wants to embrace the Par-Wraiths, but she still doesn't have enough maybe evidence or confidence to just give over to them completely. She's still got her original teachings stuck in her mind.
Right, that original programming is still there, and she's finding it difficult to give up. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I really like that conflict that she's showing. Yeah, it makes her much more interesting for sure.
Dukat goes on to explain the instructions for releasing the Par-Wraiths is in the text of the Costomogen, under the section Releasing Par-Wraiths from the Fire Caves for Fun and Profit. Winn is shocked by this, saying even opening the book is forbidden and it is said to contain a great evil.
Right.
Exactly your point of she still has that background of, wait a minute, I've been told this all my life.
Yeah.
Dukat tells her not to be afraid. And there's a wonderful piece of pure Kai Winn where sort of quite sternly, or is she sort of annoyed? She replies, did I say I was afraid? Louise Fletcher just knocks it out of the park every time with Winn. It's funny because I think of all the characters, she has been the most consistent.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
She got the character from the start.
And she's so funny with Dukat, where she sort of bounces back and forth between, this is my love interest, and, you're so much lesser than I am. I'm the Kai.
Yeah.
I'm the only one who can look at this book. I'm the one who decides you couldn't possibly understand the things that I'm going through. She still has all of that going on.
Well, she makes a comment a little bit later on about, I think you should know your place.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Did you know that of these three people, the actor who plays Solbor is the youngest?
Oh, that's funny.
By quite a ways, actually. Louise Fletcher is quite a bit older than both of them. And then Dukat, I think Dukat is maybe 6 or 7 years older than the guy playing Solbor, but Solbor looks so much older.
Yeah. He looks like this ancient old guy.
Yeah.
Back to DS9, and Miles and Julian are still playing their Alamo game, except now Miles has built a whole model of the fort and put it in Quark's bar. I think it's nice that Quark allowed them to take up all that space.
I don't know what is going on with the Alamo. Who is so obsessed with the stupid Alamo? I don't get it. I totally agree with Worf. This is stupid.
Well, from the upper level of the bar, Ezri and Worf are having a drink and discussing boys, which is the most important thing for the Dax symbiont to talk about.
This is a much better version of their relationship, Worf and Ezri.
Yes.
I definitely see this as an upgrade, but it is just so disappointing that Ezri's character has one purpose.
To talk about boys?
Yeah. It's so frustrating.
Well, to cut a long story short, Ezri is already in love with Julian.
Mm-hmm. He's so handsome.
Yes.
He's so handsome, James. Don't forget.
And Worf is pretty much rolling his eyes at the whole thing.
Yeah.
Almost as much as Kim is.
Almost. Worf and I, we're not always on the same page, but we were totally on the same page about this.
Well, he mockingly says of Julian, he plays with toys. Don't forget, he has all those juvenile holodeck programs.
Right.
Cut back to Cardassia again, and Damar is working on something. Weyoun enters and is surprised Damar is actually up so early and working. So I think we know Damar has been letting things slip a lot.
Well, Weyoun says Damar is different, and I wrote down, he's sober. He hasn't figured that out yet.
We learn a little more about the Breen here. They have a large fleet, and their homeworld is not a barren frozen wasteland, but actually quite pleasant. So it's a big mystery why they wear the refrigeration suits.
Mm-hmm.
I did kind of like that, throw in a little bit of, so what's the deal?
Yeah.
Weyoun does mock Damar a little bit, saying he seems half-dressed because he didn't have a bottle in his hand. Burn.
Yeah. Burn.
Weyoun does note that Damar seems to have regained his confidence and wrongly assumes it's because the Dominion are winning again. And Cardassia does like to back a winner. Weyoun is very skilled at jumping to completely the wrong conclusions and being 100% convinced by it.
Yeah.
I thought that was a nice little touch that they threw in there. Weyoun tells Damar the Dominion will prevail, the Federation will be conquered, and a new era of peace and prosperity will blanket the Alpha Quadrant.
We'll all be happy and friends. Yes. It'll be great.
Well, Damar mockingly says, we're just one big happy family, aren't we? I can't decide here whether Weyoun completely misses the sarcasm or if he just chooses to.
Yeah.
Are the Weyouns just blinded by their own sense of self-importance and success? Things are going well. I'm a genius. I'm the most gifted servant of the founders, of the gods.
Well, when we look at the history of the Vorta, there's literally no reason for them to understand other races or to understand psychology. There's just none.
Yeah.
Just based on their advanced or quickened evolution and the fact that all they do is worship the founders. They don't do anything else. So is he fooled by Damar because Damar is saying what Weyoun wants him to say?
Oh, yeah.
Or does he just not care and not pick up on any of the clues because how would he?
It's difficult to determine because I really like your first point of he's easily fooled by Damar. But at the same time, they look at everyone else as lesser. So why would you bother picking up or learning these little tics or sarcasm or what the race is like? Because they are lesser.
And as long as they're not insulting the founders, they don't
care. Yeah.
He just doesn't care. He has no interest.
That's a good point.
It's the only time he gets worked up is when Damar will say something about the founders not being gods. Yes. It's the only time he gets upset.
Or if it looks like he's not 100% a cheerleader for the Dominion.
Right. I feel like we're seeing a lot of cracks in this whole thing.
Yes. Yeah. Back to Bajor, and Solbor has brought the text of the Costamojan to Winn. He tells her that the book has not been removed from the archive for 700 years, and the knowledge in the book is said to be dangerous. And then he delivers a great warning here from an old saying, "He who studies evil is studied by evil."
Mm-hmm.
To which Winn could reply, "Well, it's lucky I'm a she then."
I am no man.
Yeah, exactly. Solbor is very concerned about turning the book over to her and is very suspicious of Anjon, saying studying the book is all his idea. Winn tells Solbor that Anjon was sent by the prophets, finally telling him that he should go visit the temple and ask the prophets for forgiveness for questioning their wisdom.
Burn.
Nice. Winn weaponizing the faith for her purposes yet again.
Well, that's what she's always done. I would say that's her number one skill.
Oh, yeah, she's definitely good at that.
It's like a Catholic nun guilting you about something they don't know anything about. You know what I mean?
Winn is now hesitant to open the book, but Dukat tells her the Par race are not evil, but they are powerful, and they're willing to share that power with you. The question is, do you want it? I really like the way he's almost being like the voice in her ear. Mm-hmm. You know, like sort of the cartoon version of evil and the good. He's just whispering these things to her.
He's the devil on her shoulder.
Well, she goes along with it and opens the book, only to discover all the pages are blank. Winn tells him the words are there. It's up to us to find them.
I thought the lock on the book was pretty chintzy for the most evil book in Bajor history.
Well, and the fact that you can check it out with just the Kai's approval.
Yeah, exactly. The Kai didn't even have to go get it.
Right.
The priest went to pick it up and it turns up in a black bag. That's how you know it's evil.
Oh.
It has a black bag around it.
Right.
Yeah, and then it just has like a little chintzy lock, which as far as I could tell, the key was in the bag to the lock. I don't know. It was pretty funny.
You think that's one of those things of Solbor turning up? They wouldn't be just like, so you're saying the Kai says it's fine.
Exactly. And you have to go to a different guy to get the key.
Right.
Yeah, like how you need 2 people to unlock a nuclear missile.
Oh, right. Yes.
2-person rule or something. Yeah, you would think there would be something, but no, we just sent Solbor down to the library and he came back with the evil book. No problem. I really did find that funny.
Yeah.
I mean, at the very least, she could have gone to get it, but no, that's beneath her.
That would require another set.
Yeah.
Sisko is now meeting in Odo's office, and Cassidy comes in to see Sisko because she's been given a month's vacation by the Bajoran Shipping Authority.
Paid?
She says, "Let me guess, the emissary asked for a little favor." Sisko brilliantly replies, "I never once mentioned the word emissary."
Right.
He asks, "Is that such a terrible thing for a husband to do?" Cassidy is very annoyed by this and asks Sisko if she should call Ross and ask him not to send Ben on any dangerous missions. Sisko tries to argue it's not the same, and Cassidy just shuts him down, saying it is from where she's standing.
Yeah, it's very similar.
Her job is just as important to her as his to him. Outside, Odo and Quark are watching the two discussing this impasse, and the cynic Quark says, "Marriage, it changes everything. If you're not careful, that could be you and Kira."
Sigh.
We do get a full Season 1 Odo scoff.
Yep, that's true.
Quark is absolutely the last person on the station you should listen to for any of his takes on marriage or relationships.
Yes.
He allowed the one person who could actually make him happy, the one person who could actually love him, to slip through his fingers. He couldn't spot a keeper if they kissed him. I'm going to give my perspective on this scene, and it's from knowing you. I would 1000% not want you to do something really dangerous like this in a time of war. But actually knowing the person and knowing you, if you thought it was the right thing to do or you should do it, I'd also know there was zero chance of stopping you.
Well, I don't know. I feel like we've talked about this before when I frequently question when people have really dangerous jobs, why they bother to get married.
Yes.
And that's not fair either, but I just wonder about it, about how you make that decision and how you live with that, because I don't think I could.
Yeah.
But I don't know what to say about this because I feel like I wouldn't make a decision like that would put myself in danger without us having already discussed it and being aware of it. Right. And like we would have accepted that as part of the relationship, part of the contract that we had between each other. But if it wasn't a life or death thing and instead it was just something that I absolutely had decided to do, even then, I don't know. I don't feel like I'm that selfish, but maybe I am.
Well, I'm not saying it's a selfish thing, but it's, I see this as a responsibility.
Oh, okay.
Cassidy sees it, but she has to continue to do what she does.
Yeah, Yeah, if you take the life or death thing out of it, I absolutely make difficult decisions like that about work where it's like, no, I just have to do that. It is my duty to do that because of how I was raised. I was raised to behave that way. But I've also had discussions with myself and with other people about that too. Like, why does work win in a battle like that? Because it probably shouldn't.
And I think she's not a combat pilot, or she's not actually directly going into combat. And that's where I see she can minimize the risk, or she is not thinking of the risk, because it's just her job. It's just potentially dangerous. Whereas Sisko, I would say it's different because it is his job to take on the risk.
Well, and this is why I think there's a legitimate discussion for them to have, where you've brought it up many times. He lost his first wife on the job.
Right.
So has he never mentioned that to her? Have they never talked about that was going to make him overly concerned about her safety?
Right.
And she's agreeing to go into a relationship with that person. So you have to accept that this is going to come up and you got to be prepared for it. And just dismissing it isn't the right answer either. You know, empathy.
Yeah, it's something you should have discussed by this point, or at least have an understanding.
Yeah. Sometimes this show can be so teenagey about their relationships and the way people connect to each other. It's like, did you guys ever get out of high school?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. It feels like forced drama.
When we get to the end of this series, which isn't that far from now, we have to discuss some of the things that we couldn't give up on for the whole show. Like for you, it's Pell.
And don't forget Mars's love interest.
Oh, yeah, Neela. And I never quite got over the way Bashir was in season 1.
No, you did not. Off to Bajor again, and Solbor has brought some more books for Winn.
Oh, Solbor.
He tells her that the archivists are concerned why she needs to consult so many of these dark texts. She tells him that Kai is working for the good of Bajor and orders him to go. And then she shoos Dukat out the room as well because she needs to concentrate. The Bajorans really do have a lot of forbidden literature.
Yeah, that's weird. I really like that her ego continues to thrive and she still thinks she's smarter than Dukat because she's the Kai.
Yes.
It's a failing of many people in power. Like, I'm here, so I must be the smartest.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, not necessarily.
It's a number one problem.
Yep. Why don't they ask the Pow Wraiths for help about how to read the invisible ink?
That would be a good idea. I mean, they have visions, so one or the other should be able to figure it out.
Yeah.
On DS9, Sisko has brought Cassidy flowers to apologize, and she's back on the active list. He tells her he won't interfere with her work unless you tell me to, and then pauses and adds, or if absolutely necessary. And when Cassidy gives him a look, he quickly says, that was a joke.
It was a joke.
Yeah, I did actually like that dynamic.
Which was a little bit like and so the battle begins in the previous episode that you didn't like.
Yes. I think this one felt a little better.
All right.
And I do like the dynamic between Cassidy and Sisko.
It can be good.
Well, because you can't have too much happy on this show, Admiral Ross comes to Sisko and tells him the Breen have broken through the Chintaka system.
The damn Chintaka system.
And a solemn Sisko asks, when do I leave? On the Defiant, the crew is now getting ready, and Nog is being extremely defeatist about the Breen. Somebody should just slap him upside the head and say, shut up, Ensign.
He is being very whiny.
Yeah. We learn that Mars is annoyed because Julian managed to misplace one of the figures for the model that Miles has built of the Alamo. And I liked how Kira says, that's what happens when you share your toys. And on the other side of the bridge, Worf quietly says to Ezri, he plays with toys.
Mm-hmm.
And Ezri actually defends the situation saying, it's a model.
Yeah, it's an action figure, not a doll.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Didn't you think, just based on this scene alone, that it really doesn't make a lot of sense that Kira and Worf aren't chums?
Yes, they're both warriors.
They have a lot of similar sensibilities, yeah.
Yeah. Sisko enters the bridge and orders Kira to set course to join the Federation assault fleet. And we get a great shot of the Defiant heading away from the station.
Now this time we're all going. How come?
That's my question here. This does fall under, so why is Kira flying a Federation ship?
And sometimes she's not. I wouldn't care if they were consistent.
Yeah.
But why don't we need to leave somebody behind on the station anymore? I don't know. I guess because they didn't have a story waiting on the station.
Oh, that's true. Plus, it keeps them all together for this.
Yeah.
I wonder what Ortegas is up to at this point. You know she's my favorite character, right?
I know.
I mean, she flies the ship.
She does.
And we go back to Bejor, where Kai Winn has fallen asleep at a desk, and Solbor tries quietly to remove the book she's been studying. The dark books.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to help, dude.
But Solbor runs into Dukat and refuses to put the books back. Dukat strikes his stunt double, knocking him to the ground,
Yeah.
and then picks up the books, saying, "I'll put them back," and pushes Solbor out.
I mean, as always, Dukat one step too far.
Yep. Dukat wakes Winn, who tells him she's not made much progress. I will say, Dukat is being quite charming to her. Again, I feel bad because he's so obviously manipulating her. Because she seems quite happy to see him. She is all over the place, though. I mean, we're seeing that Kai coming out, and then we're seeing Adami coming out, where he seems to be able to charm her.
Yeah, she's a little bit broken. She doesn't... Maybe it's because she hasn't found the answer that she's looking for, which is making her have time to doubt what she's doing overall. But then she gets re-energized by something that Dukat says. So, yeah, I think she probably is legitimately all over the place.
Off to Cardassia, and we see Damar, who is meeting with the officer from earlier. This officer also seems to like a drink, if you notice.
Yeah, but Damar stops him from drinking.
So I'm wondering, do all Cardassian officers just turn straight to drink when stuff doesn't go their way?
Maybe. We've certainly seen it in normal jobs. People with bottles in their desk drawers. Mm-hmm.
The officer tells Damar their troops are in position, and Damar orders that they'll strike in 7 hours. The officer warns Damar they'll lose many fine soldiers, but Damar replies, at least they'll die for Cardassia, not the Dominion, and the officer just nods.
I really like this new guy. He's very serious.
Oh yeah, he's taken this seriously.
Well, and he's just there to have a conversation with Damar. There's no other complicated agenda like there always was with Dukat, so
right.
I like these two.
They're just soldiers, really.
Yep.
Off to a Jem'Hadar ship, and the founder and Weyoun are on board. She's joined them at the front because she wants to watch the battle firsthand. Once again, Combs is great. I do like here how the character Weyoun is actually displaying genuine concern for the founder. When he says about how he was concerned of her being this close to the front.
Well, if something happens to her on his watch, that would not be good for him.
That's true. We cut now to a great effect shot of a vast fleet of Romulan, Federation, and Klingon ships, and I keep thinking, wow, that must have been expensive to do. But it's a great effect shot. And the music swells with lots of close-ups of our heroes into the ad break. This would have been a great spot for an episode break.
Right as the battle was starting. Mm-hmm.
Or if you wanted to be really nasty, you could have had it as a season finale.
Yeah, you could have done the big dun-dun, dun-dun, to be continued.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We now see a great effect shot of the opposite side with a vast Dominion fleet, and Sisko orders the battle to commence with attack pattern Delta.
Don't we always start with Delta?
Wow, I hope the Dominion don't figure out they always start with that one. Could be bad.
Maybe I'm just imagining things.
Well, things start out great with the Defiant taking out Breen ships.
Yeah.
And then, one shot from the Breen ship, and the Defiant is covered in lightning, and everything goes offline. Immediately things start exploding and NPCs are flying around everywhere. Outside the Defiant is just getting shot up. Kira goes down as more explosions rock the ship. Everything is going to hell and Sisko orders abandon ship and they head for the escape pods. Sisko stands in the doorway of the bridge and looks at the ship on fire. And we see escape pods leaving the heavily damaged Defiant. And there's a great effect shot here where we see the Defiant flying into the screen, and all around it are dozens more disabled and damaged ships.
Yeah.
Romulans, Klingons, everything.
That's bad.
And before things can get any worse, 2 final shots hit the Defiant, and it explodes.
Did not see that coming.
I did not want to bring that up.
Oh, tragedy. The Defiant is lost.
On the Jem'Hadar ship, Weyoun announces, "Poor Captain Sisko. I believe he was quite fond of that ship."
Oh, he was.
We were all very fond of that ship. He reports to the evil founder woman the Chintoka system is the Dominion's again. Weyoun also notes all the escape pods and says he will arrange for their destruction immediately. But the founder stops him, reasoning that the pods are full of frightened, demoralized troops. Weyoun sucks up to the founder some more, calling her wise, as those troops will spread fear through the Federation of what happened here. Weyoun is honestly just the best toady to have around. Oh, you're so wise.
Yeah, although the founder doesn't really care.
No, that's also the funny part of it. I mean, he's just following his programming.
Didn't you think it was a little hard to buy that she would make that decision and not just kill everyone since she hates solids and she wants the chaos to stop?
I shall discuss that in overanalysis.
Oh, all right.
Back to Bajor, and Winn has had some breakfast and coffee and seems much happier. But in comes Solbor. He's found out the truth that Anjon Tenon died 9 years earlier in a labor camp. He even took a sample of DNA from Anjon and discovered he's really a Cardassian.
Yep.
And, perhaps most importantly, figured out it's Gul Dukat. Winn is horrified, and Dukat tells her Solbor couldn't possibly understand the love of the Par Wraiths.
Yeah, but I can.
And Solbor finally figures it out, saying, "You're trying to release them." He tells her, "You betrayed the prophets. You betrayed them all." Winn tells him, "They are our true gods." Solbor finally says, "You must be stopped," and tries to leave. But Winn stabs him in the back.
Oh, poor Solbor. None of this is his fault. He's just trying to do his job. Yeah.
You know, if you know anything about the followers of the Par Wraiths, they do like to stab people given the chance.
Good point.
Just ask Sisko about that.
That's true.
I think for the first time here, you see Winn not actually having a backup plan, as she tells Dukat, "My life is over. The Par Wraiths sent you to destroy me."
Yeah.
But Dukat replies, he was sent to save her. A distraught Winn tells him, lies, Cardassian lies, and that she must destroy the book. But she lets blood from the knife drop onto one of the pages, and the book appears to burst into flame. But instead of being burned up, the text on the pages is revealed. That was actually a really nice effect. I thought it looked really good. Dukat tells her, "You see? The Par Wraiths have found you worthy. Their secrets are now your secrets to do as you please. Take their gift and use it. Seize the power they are offering you." Oh, yeah. Offering Kai Winn unlimited power? We know what she's going to decide here. Dukat then tells her he'll take care of the body, and she just nods.
Yeah, please clean that mess up.
It's something that Dukat's good at.
Yeah, getting rid of dead Bajorans.
Yes.
Yeah, he's very good at that.
Have some overanalysis on that too.
Okay.
Back to Deep Space Nine, and Sisko is meeting with Ross, telling him the Defiant was the finest ship he ever commanded.
And Ross is like, "Oh my God. I'll get you a new car."
Ross tells him they don't know how to neutralize the Breen energy dissipators, and Sisko says they need to buy time. Kira calls as they've received a transmission from Cardassian space. It's Damar. Damar is making a broadcast saying, "Our allies have conquered us without firing a shot, and the Cardassians have attacked the Dominion outpost on Rondak 3. He calls upon Cardassians everywhere to resist until the last Dominion soldier has been driven from their soil." And we cut to Weyoun telling the evil founder it's been confirmed. Damar destroyed the cloning facility on Rondak. A visibly shaken Weyoun says, "I could be the last Weyoun. That's why he picked that target."
And
I think we all know that is exactly why he picked that target.
Absolutely.
Evil Founder reacts the way founders treat all problems, telling Weyoun to find Damar and the traitors and to eliminate them. They are kind of one note when it comes to that.
Well, unless they're in escape pods.
Back to Deep Space Nine, and Kira reports to Sisko the Cardassian attack is confirmed. He replies they need to find a way to help. Legate Damar may be the key to saving the Alpha Quadrant. The end.
Well, that was quite an episode. I assume you have over-analysis.
So, let's discuss leaving all the escape pods intact. And I think this goes back to the point earlier where Weyoun said the attack on the Starfleet HQ would make them all terrified and frightened, and they'll all be scared and feel weak. They don't seem to have considered that maybe a lot, most, all those escape pods will be full of very angry, very revenge-hungry, hardened combat veterans who want payback for their friends, their ships, their crewmates who've been killed, and will not be spreading fear and a lack of morale, but will be spreading white-hot anger.
Yeah, they're not tourists.
Yes.
Yeah.
It seems like a terrible idea, because how many of those people are escaping are competent warriors, are competent spacers. You want to take out as many of the enemy as physically possible.
Yeah, if it's true that what they're really trying to do is eliminate chaos, you would definitely want to wipe these people out. I mean, they're at the very heart of the chaos you're experiencing.
Right.
Yeah.
I think this speaks again to this misunderstanding of solids, of the way their non-engineered races think. That's like hard-coded into the founders. They're just arrogant and they have so much hubris.
Well, that's one of my over-analysis points. Is this lack of respect for solids going to be the downfall of the founders? They allied themselves with the Cardassians, but when that didn't go the way they wanted, they just crapped on them and moved on to the next ones. And what's going to happen when that doesn't work? They're going to crap on them too. They're going to run out of allies. And they're not being smart about anything having to do with these other creatures because they have no respect for them.
Yeah. I wonder if that's what's worked for them in the Gamma Quadrant, that they've never had to, they've been picking apart individual races. They've never had to fight a united enemy before, or that the founders have been on a higher evolutionary scale. They've had more technology, better technology. So they've been able to dominate. And this is like the first time they've really had to deal with someone who's on their level.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering, is if the allied nature in this quadrant is throwing them off.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned earlier in this episode, and I think you've said it before, why don't they realize, like, if they looked at World War II history, and when Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, they just thought America would cower in fear, and how wrong were they? It would have been much smarter to have just left America out of it, right?
Yeah.
But if they're doing the same exact thing, and they're just assuming that all they have to do is scare the solids, and then that's it, because that's what worked in the other quadrant, then their actions make a lot of sense. Now they're getting sort of strung out and desperate at this point because their first plan didn't work and they're not used to their first plan not working.
Wait a minute, our plan A has never failed.
Exactly. And so now they're just extending their bad decisions. Yeah. So yeah, it's quite interesting.
Yeah, and I feel that point of them not really studying history or looking at these races because they just make this assumption. They're all solids. They're all lesser. Therefore, we couldn't possibly learn anything from them.
Yeah, there's nothing to learn. These people are lesser than we are.
Right. Next thing, Martog's reaction. He seemed very impressed by the Breen.
Yeah, by their boldness.
And I wonder if from a Klingon perspective, this makes the Breen a better opponent because it makes a better victory for the Klingons. If in the Klingon mindset, these guys aren't a pushover. This is going to be an awesome victory. This proves how badass a warrior I am when I defeat the Breen. So, if you like, it almost becomes a negative to prove that you're a strong warrior to the Klingons. Whereas if you didn't show your hand, the Klingons would think they're going to be a pushover and would be overconfident. Whereas showing this, the Klingons are like, oh, these are warriors. We're going to have to actually fight them.
Yeah, well, Worf told a story about Klingons attacking the Breen homeworld and then never being heard from.
Yeah.
So there's already sort of a mystique around them. Yeah. So Martog is really just building on that mystique, I would say. Because normally what we hear from the Klingons about whoever it is that's attacking is they have no honor. But in this particular case, there's a little bit of fear about the Breen because of the unknown and because of something historical that happened. That's very interesting.
Yeah, I like that coming from Martog.
Yeah, Martog, he's like in one scene in this episode, but he's so good. And that same scene, Sisko is really good, right? Like, Sisko is tough as nails in that scene. And I've thought this before where it seemed like these two were just totally in love with each other. It's like they'd been waiting their whole lives to meet each other, and be working together. It's super cute.
They are brothers from a different mother.
Yeah, exactly.
Next thing, Dukat says he'll dispose of the body. I assume that because of the Par Wraiths, and remember there was the cult of the Par Wraiths on Bajor, Dukat has a lot of contacts on Bajor.
Yeah, probably. I assume he just dumped him in a fire somewhere.
Oh dear, stuffing him down a waste disposal chute.
Yeah, he probably does. Maybe he's still got some cultists following him.
Oh, it's possible.
It is.
And I say that because I bet some of the cultists are like, oh, you just weren't following Dukat correctly.
Probably. I mean, it worked really well with that first group, so there's no reason to think he wasn't able to build up a second group somewhere.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, they weren't true believers. The prophets infiltrated them. And Dukat's such a good talker.
Well, he certainly thinks so.
Yes. Next thing, I want to know more about these dark texts. The Bajorans seem to have all these hidden books, including ones that will show how to release the Par Wraiths. What else do they actually have in there?
Yeah, I fear we'll never know, but it's a good question. What are these black magic books?
Right, and Why would you put stuff like that in books? Here's how you release the power rates.
And then just leave him at the library. Yeah.
Anybody turns up and says, yeah, the Kai says it's okay for me to take this.
Well, it's a bit like YouTube now. You can just type in something nefarious and see a video of someone doing
Release power rates from...
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think my final point is, this is a classic example of the Star Trek super weapon that makes the Federation, the Starship, whoever, utterly defenseless.
Yeah.
It's sort of so overpowered. It's like, okay, so the Breen have proved this weapon works. It disables ships. They lost hundreds of ships in this battle. Why don't the Breen just go, set a course for Earth, we'll stun everything on the way there, we've won.
Well, except it didn't, because they lost a lot of ships on Earth, so...
But it doesn't sound like they were using that weapon when they did the attack on Earth.
Yeah, maybe. No, I agree that it's too powerful of a weapon, yeah. Just out of the blue, yeah.
It's like when we first introduced...
the Jem'Hadar, and they blew up a Galaxy-class ship.
Yes, and then the time when they beamed onto the station, they could walk through the containment fields, their ships were fully shielded.
They had to back off on that stuff because they couldn't defeat it. This is very similar.
Right, exactly. So I feel this is the classic Trek super weapon.
At the same time, though, I recognize that you do have to build fear.
Yes.
So you do have to find a way to do it. But yeah, it's better if you find a way to do it without having an impossible weapon or an impossible enemy.
Right. I guess it's something in Trek we kind of have to accept. It's one of the shorthands they always do in the storytelling.
Yeah, not just Trek. I mean, Marvel.
Well, Marvel's huge at it. I still always love the line from the writer who, when asked, who is the most powerful superhero? His response was, well, whoever is needed to advance the story.
Yeah. If you watch any sort of science fiction-y stuff, like we've been watching Foundation lately, and, you know, they can fold space and do all this crazy stuff, but somehow they don't seem able to just have a battle with each other. I don't know. It's the same kind of thing. In order to tell those kinds of stories, you have to have this great technology, but at the same time, you have to tell people stories at the end of the day.
Right. So that wraps up my overanalysis. I don't have any final points. So over to you, Kim.
Well, I only had two, and one of them we already talked about with the founder's lack of respect for the solids. So the other one I'll mention is I'm starting to believe that Dukat actually believes what he's been saying. I mean, I still think he's crazy, but I think he's all in on the power wraiths. I was thinking for a while he was just sort of making that stuff up, but I guess I don't think that anymore. But I don't know, are they using his crazy to advance whatever it is that they want to advance, the power wraiths, I mean?
Yeah.
Or was he actually part of some ridiculous prophecy? I don't know. I need more details on what's going on there, and hopefully we will get some more. All right, then I will go to women in the future, and just a couple of things in this section this week. There was the, oh, haha, Cassidy can't cook moment, like let's make that into a joke. And I don't know. It was silly. The scene was silly. And I feel like we can do better. That's really all I have to say about that. And of course, there's the really annoying thing, which is that Ezri's character has been reduced to being a Julian love interest. And that's just so disappointing. How we've fallen all the way back to season 1 when how many times did I complain about all that they ever had Dax talking about was boys. And here we are in season 7 and we're still doing the same things. And what's worse is it feels like we brought in this character just for this reason. And it's just like, really? You couldn't do better than that? That's embarrassing, Star Trek. And then on top of these sort of weak things, we have Kai Winn. She's such an interesting character. She's conflicted. She's arrogant. She's even now disgusted by Dukat, but she's still working with him. And she's still hoping to get this power that he talks about. And she's still hoping to feel that love that he talks about from the power wraiths. So it's just such a fascinating character mixed in with sort of this other stupid stuff. Yeah. I just wish we just wouldn't do the stupid stuff. Skip that. It's not actually advancing for women in any way to have those narrow visions. It's better for them not to be there. That's probably something that somebody might argue with me about, but I would rather you have fewer women characters who are interesting than a bunch of them to live up to a stereotype that just isn't true. All right, so let's move on to rating.
Yeah.
Thumbs up, thumbs down, or neutral. What is your rating?
Absolute thumbs up. Great episode. It suffered badly from the loss of a tough little ship, which I remember watching that the first time and going,
oh, shocker.
They blew up the Defiant. What the hell?
Yeah.
That was very surprising at the time. The stuff they do with Ezri is just annoyingly dumb. They're so dropping the ball with the character. The visual effects, the battle scene, Wayun, Kai Winn.
Mm-hmm.
What's not to love? Great episode. Absolute thumbs up.
Yeah, I give it a thumbs up too. And all those positives that you mentioned, plus Damar. I thought Damar was really good in this episode as well. We were talking last night. I told you we've only got 4 or 5 episodes left to watch from here. And I feel like everything that's left has been spoiled for me. That's the way that I feel. But I don't really know. I'll find out as we watch. But I thought what we could do is, as we hit these episodes now, as we wind down towards the end, I could tell you the things that I didn't see coming, that I absolutely didn't know anything about.
Excellent.
Because I randomly watched the next episode last night and was completely shocked by something that happens in the next episode. But in this episode, there were 2 things that shocked me. One was the Breen attack on Earth. I had no clue. I had no idea. I'd never heard that. I didn't know that it happened. And I had no idea they were going to destroy the Defiant. I was so shocked when that happened. I actually thought it was like a dream or, something would happen that would undo it. It would go back in time. I guess it still could. I really thought in that moment something else was going to undo that ship being blown up. So I was really surprised by that. Though it did make me think about back to the beginning of season 3 when everything that happened in like the first handful of episodes was really all happening in that cave with the Vorta.
Oh.
So maybe that's what's going to happen at the end. It's all just going to wind up that they've just been in a Vorta cave for 6 years.
None of it's real.
None of it's real.
And then they wake up and Bobby's in the shower.
Oh, exactly. And I'm also maybe a little surprised that there hasn't been anything more about the founder sickness. It's like they introduced that early in the season and then they just sort of dropped it. And yes, we see a little hint of it here and there, but I'm really surprised that's not a bigger part of the story.
Did you also notice that now the founder is all crinkly in front of Thot Gore?
Yes, I did notice that in this episode. Like she's given up or she's unable to keep herself straight now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it because they've signed the treaty so she doesn't have to keep pretending? Surely the Breen would go, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah. Dude, you're falling apart. Little bits keep falling off.
Yeah.
What's going on here?
This is why it goes back to my overanalysis from last week of the Breen are hedging their bets.
Maybe.
They know they're dying, and the Breen are figuring, after we win and they die, we get to run everything.
Oh, maybe. It's not a bad thought. And maybe also, though, Thot Gore said to her, dude, your skin's just falling off. That's why we wear these suits. Get yourself a suit.
We're actually completely grossed out by all your skin shedding. That's why we have them,
Yeah, that's funny. All right, that wraps up Season 7, Episode 20. Come back next week for Episode 21. In the meantime, if you'd like to send us your own overanalysis of this or any episode, or if you just want to say something nice, you can email us at ReBingeIT@gmail.com. Or you can check us out on all the social media platforms, including YouTube at ReBingeIT. And by the way, when we get to the end of Deep Space Nine and we move on to Voyager, we are going to rebrand our podcast as ReBingeIT. So you'll be able to, you can stick with this feed if it's just easier for you, but we will be moving to a podcast called ReBingeIT. If you just want to get all of our podcasts, you can just get the ReBingeIT feed. All right, I think that's it. The last thing to say is you can join the conversation on the Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Star Trek TTM podcasts.
Thanks for joining us on the Rebinge Deep Space Nine podcast.
And that's it for me because I've melted and it's 100 degrees in here. I am just a puddle on the bottom of the floor of my podcast booth right now.
Oh.
I am currently in liquid form.
Well, you have to return to a liquid form every 14 hours or whatever it was.
Yeah, exactly. And that's it for me.
And that's it from me.